She never once touched you. She never held eye contact for too long. She never laughed extra hard at your jokes. By every conventional standard, she gave you nothing. And yet, she was completely, quietly obsessed with you. The signals were all there. They just weren't the ones that anyone told you to look out for. Today, I'm gonna fix that. Jessica OS here. Welcome to the channel. Guys, forget the hair twirling, forget the lingering eye contact. I mean, every man with a YouTube account has probably heard those before. What I'm covering today are the signals that operate below the obvious layer. The ones rooted in psychology and social behavior, and in specific ways women manage attraction when they haven't decided yet whether to act on it. These are the signals that show up before she's made a conscious decision to show interest, which makes them arguably the most honest signals of all. So I'm going to cover a couple of them today. Stay tuned and find out just how many. Signal 1. She disagrees with you more than anyone else does. So this one runs completely counter to what men expect, which is exactly why it gets missed all the time. The assumption is that someone who likes you will be agreeable, will be warm, will be accommodating, and yeah, for the most part, that's true. But for a specific type of woman, and a very common one, the opposite behavior sometimes emerges. She pushes back on your opinions, she challenges your takes, she argues with you about basically things that objectively don't really matter that much. Now, here's a psychological reason this happens. Indifference is effortless. You don't argue with people you don't care about. You nod, move on, and pretty much forget the conversation ever happened, correct? Debate, on the other hand, requires investment. It requires that you care enough about what the other person thinks to want to change it, or to want them to see you as someone worth taking seriously. When a woman is frequently in low-stakes debate with you specifically, what she's actually doing is creating prolonged, emotionally charged interactions with you while maintaining complete deniability. She's not flirting technically, she's just disagreeing. But the interaction is intimate, it's stimulating, and it keeps her in close conversational range with you, which is exactly where attraction wants her to be. The thing that separates genuine conflict from attraction-driven sparring is the energy. Remember that. Genuine disagreement tends to be brief and then dropped. Attraction-driven sparring has a playful undercurrent. She's not actually angry, she's engaged. So watch the smile in the corner of her lips, and watch how quickly she re-engages after a pause. Things like that are telling. Signal 2. She becomes slightly more reserved, not more open. There's a widely held belief that if a woman opens up to you, talks freely, and shares personal details very easily, she's interested. And yes, that is and can be true. But there's an equally valid and far less discussed pattern where a woman who is generally attracted to someone becomes slightly more guarded around them, not less. This happens because attraction raises the stakes of the interaction. With someone she feels nothing for, she has nothing to lose. She can be completely herself, relaxed, and unconcerned with how she comes across. With someone she actually wants something from, the fear of saying the wrong thing, coming across as wrong, or revealing too much too soon creates a kind of careful composure that can look from the outside like disinterest or coldness. If you've ever had an interaction with a woman where she was notably more contained than she is with other people around her, and you interpreted that as her not being interested, there's actually a real chance that you may have misread the room entirely. The question to ask is not, is she being open with me, but rather, is she being more careful with me than she is with everyone else? Careful is not cold. Careful means something is at stake, and something is only at stake when she cares about the outcome. Signal 3. She references future scenarios that include you. This signal is subtle enough that most men hear it and don't register what just happened. She'll say things like, "You'd probably love that restaurant," or "We should do that sometime," or "I feel like you'd be good at that." Statements that project you into her imagined future, even casually, even hypothetically, are not throwaway comments, okay? They're evidence that she's running mental simulations that include you. And people only do that about things and people they're emotionally invested in. I mean, think about it. You don't picture you with your dentist at a restaurant you like. You don't imagine your coworker being good at some kind of hobby that you enjoy. You only imagine people who occupy mental and emotional space in your life. And for her, in this moment, That is you. These references are significant because they're almost always unconscious, you see. She's not like strategically planning future-pacing language just to signal interest. She's saying what's on her mind, and what's on her mind has you in it. Get it? Pay attention to how casually they're delivered. The offhand nature of the comment is actually what makes it most credible. If she was performing interest, she'd make it more obvious. The fact that it lands quietly is the point. I mean, how many times has a woman said something like this to you and you just let it pass? If you're realizing right now that that has happened, well, this is what this channel is for, so keep watching. Signal 4. She mirrors your communication style, not your words. So I'm definite that you've heard about mirroring. Basically the idea that people unconsciously copy body language of the people that they're attracted to. That's real, but it's not the obvious version. The less obvious version, however, happens in communication style, and it's far harder to fake or perform. Now, if you're someone who communicates with, for instance, dry humor, and she starts using dry humor as well with you specifically, even when it's not like her default register, that's mirroring, okay? If you tend to text longer, more thoughtful messages, and her responses start to match that energy, that is mirroring. If you use specific phrases and she starts echoing that vocabulary without realizing it, that is mirroring. What this represents is her nervous system doing what it naturally does around someone it wants to be closer to. It synchronizes, okay? It tries to close the gap between her and you by becoming more like you. Now, the reason this signal is so powerful is that communication style is deeply personal and deeply habitual. We don't change it easily or often. When someone changes it around a specific person, not globally, but specifically, that change is driven by something real. The test is simple. Notice how she communicates with you versus how she communicates with everyone else in the same setting. Now, if there's a measurable difference in tone and things like pace or vocabulary, you're not imagining it. Guys, if you're getting value from this video and you haven't subscribed yet, please do so now. I promise every video on this channel earns your time. Signal 5. She remembers what she's supposed to forget. So this goes a little deeper than the obvious version of this, which says something like she remembers the small details. Now, this is about a specific category of memory. The things she had no logical reason to retain. The offhand thing you said about your father. The name of a city you mentioned once in a conversation weeks ago. A preference you stated in passing that she never needed to know. Now, the reason this variety of memory is more powerful than the general attentiveness is that basically it reveals unconscious prioritization. Yes, she's prioritizing you. Okay, short-term memory is highly selective. The brain holds onto what matters and discards what doesn't. When something you said in passing made it into her long-term recall without any practical reason for her to retain it, what that tells you is that her brain flagged you as important at a level below conscious thought. No kidding. There's also a secondary layer to this signal. When she brings it up, and she will eventually always bring it up, watch her face. There'll be a fraction of a second where she realizes she just revealed something. A flicker of self-awareness, a slight adjustment in her composure, things like that. That's the tell. That's the moment she knows she's shown her hand, even if neither of you acknowledges that directly. Please don't let that moment pass without responding to it warmly. That is an open door. Signal 6. She becomes an audience for your life that you didn't recruit. So the signal operates in the digital space and in social environments. And it's one of the most consistent and most overlooked patterns in modern attraction. She watches your stories, not just sometimes, but reliably. She knows things about your life that you didn't specifically tell her, which means that she's been paying attention to you without being asked to do so. She shows up to things, she appears at social events where she knew somehow that you'd be there without making it obvious that that was the reason, right? She becomes a quiet, consistent presence at the edges of your life before she ever makes a move towards the center of it. What this behavior represents is a woman conducting due diligence from a safe distance. She's gathering information about who you are, how you live, and whether what she's attracted to on the surface or the outside holds up at depth while maintaining that ability to retreat without any acknowledged risk. This isn't stalking, it's pre-investment research, okay? It's research she does before she invests, and it's extremely common and extremely rational. The tell that separates casual observation from attraction-driven attention is consistency and selectivity. She's not just present in everyone's life this way, okay? She's specifically, reliably present in yours. If you've noticed this and written it off as coincidence, I'll encourage you to reconsider the odds. Signal 7, she creates a private language with you. So if you ask me, this is the deepest, most intimate signal on the list, and it almost never gets talked about. Here's what it looks like in practice. An inside joke that only two of you share. A reference that only lands between you. A word or a phrase or a running callback to something that happened once, which she keeps alive by returning to it. A nickname that came from a specific moment. A way of communicating between just the two of you that is entirely separate from how either of you interact with anyone else in your lives. You see, private language is anything but trivial. It is, in its most fundamental form, the construction of a shared world. And you don't build a shared world with someone that you're indifferent to, okay? Or with someone you don't like. The reason the signal is so significant and so non-obvious is that it is rarely done consciously. She's not necessarily sitting down and thinking, oh, I'll create a private language with this man to signal my interest. No, that's not what's happening. What's happening is that intimacy is being built organically through repeated interaction, through the accumulation of shared reference, and through the emotional safety that comes from having something that belongs to only the two of you. The existence of that private language in itself is evidence of intimacy. And where genuine intimacy exists between two people who are not in a defined relationship, attraction is almost always the engine behind it. Pay attention to whether you and this woman have a texture to your communication that exists nowhere else in either of your lives. If you do, you already know what that means. And you didn't need this video to tell you. I hope I was able to at least enlighten you a little bit, throw some light into your life, and let you know that you've been slacking, my guy. There's a lot of things that you need to look out for if you're attracting women and if you're winning them over without even trying. Anyway, my name is Jessica OS. Catch you in the next video. Cheers.